This week, we are discussing seasons on the Great Lakes and spring landscapes with Chris Noronha. You are listening to the LAKESCAPE Photography Podcast. Welcome to episode 18 of the LAKESCAPE Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Albert, and this week we are joined by Chris Noronha. Our first international guest, Chris shoots the many landscapes of Ontario across all seasons and enjoys all of the changes that come along with each. In this episode, Chris and I discuss how to embrace the changes of the seasons and focus in on spring and the many challenges and rewards of this very special time of year. From gear you might have never considered to simply picking locations and getting out there, Chris shares advice from his experiences in the Great Lakes region and beyond. Links to all of Chris's work are included in the show notes below. Make sure you head over to his Instagram page, give him a follow, and check out some of his images as you enjoy this week's discussion with Chris Noronha.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. My name is Chris, based just outside of Toronto. Shoot mostly like landscape and nature stuff. Shooting for quite a while, but it's been a passion of mine since about 2007 when my wife and I were going on our honeymoon. I wanted to get something a little nicer to take some pictures. Point and shoots were the thing back in those days. And so went out, picked up what I thought was like a great DSLR, a D40X back in the day, like pure entry level, kit lens type of thing. And from there I just got, the light bulb went off and I just wanted to learn more about how to make this little thing work. And I guess the passion kind of started up and just went right into the deep end with like tutorials and books. And back in those days, YouTube wasn't really that popular. It was, I don't even know if it was just starting out, but there wasn't a whole lot of like tutorials like there are these days. So you're basically learning from like books, and like the Kelby training was like a popular one back in the day. I remember signing up for that and just learning how to use my camera and learning about, creativity and the different rules. And from there, it just snowballed into what it is today.
Yeah, I remember Scott Kelby and the courses that he would offer. He was like the Photoshop guru for a while there.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm a graphic designer by trade. So my work is in graphic design. So I learned a lot of like playing around with Photoshop through Kelby, and so getting to do some more creative stuff with Photoshop was always through them, and I learned a little bit of photography through that as well, and I think that kind of pushed my wife would say obsession with photography, but that really pushed it, learning more about what they were doing and learning some of the courses that they were offering. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's good to have that obsession, though. I mean, I typically say it's passion, and my wife would also disagree. She would say it is obsession because if you're not watching a YouTube video, you're reading a book, or you're on somebody's Instagram, or you're doing something photography related. And it's just, like you said, once you get started, you just sink into that hole, and it's just an amazing experience, just learning new things constantly.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing at just like, you think you know it all, and then you learn something like completely different or something outside of what you would normally think of. And it's like a whole new world just opens up, and you're just like, oh, I need to learn, or I need to like study so much more.
Yes, exactly. That happens to me all the time, where just something as simple as the way somebody uses a light meter, or the way somebody maybe does composition, just watching videos or reading about what somebody's doing and actually being a part of their thought process, it's so incredible to be able to sit there and watch somebody else work and incorporate that and translate that into your work. I think that's been the most beneficial thing for me in finding my own style and just photography overall is you build your style from little bits and pieces of everyone else's that inspires you.
Absolutely. I think like when I first started out, I was, you go out it alone. So you're going out to these places just learning how to use a camera, but you're usually by yourself figuring this out. And when I started, reaching out to people, or for me personally, I joined a photo club, and my local photo club, I got to meet like-minded people who were interested in what I was doing, and they would, you know, teach me these little tricks, or point me in a direction of a place that would be a great shot or spot to shoot. And just learning from these people was where I actually developed the fastest. Like, I felt that my photography, it grew like crazy within that first year that I was in the photo club.
Yeah. Yeah. Shooting with other people is huge. And I, very similar to you, I was shooting solo for years. And then back around, I'd say it was 2020, 2021, a few friends and I actually started a small photography club in my region. And we started meeting up and doing photo hikes and just getting out there and just bouncing ideas off of each other and just having those discussions while I was out shooting with other people. It transformed the way I looked at stuff because, like, when I first got into photography, I would just be shooting random things. When I was really young, my dad would be shooting alongside of me. And it's interesting because there's kind of like that balance where you have to do it solo and kind of practice different things on your own, but you also have to do it in a group and have that one-on-one time with other people because maybe the way they're doing something is an is the direct answer to a problem you're having, and boom, just like that it's solved.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's being able to bounce some ideas off of, people that either you respect, or they inspire you, is huge, especially when somebody has been doing it for a while and they know what they're doing, so you can, throw some questions their way, and like, okay, I'm, having trouble figuring out this problem I'm having. What would you do? And just having that back and forth with somebody that you respect is huge. I wouldn't I would recommend trying to find people that you can actually get out to shoot with.
I always am looking for people to get out there and shoot with myself. I've shot with so many different people over the last few years, and it's always exciting. It's always inviting. And it's just nice to not have to hike 10 miles alone sometimes, too.
Absolutely, especially when it's in the dark.
Yes.
That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Every little bump and creak in the forest, you're spinning around with your flashlight. What was that?
It's amazing at how everything just sounds like a crazy beast when you're by yourself in the forest. It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if it's windy and the trees are howling and, every little thing that moves, you're just like over aware of what's happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Overaware is an understatement. It's like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And the hyper vigilance, which I mean, it can be a good thing.
You know what? That's true. It's probably better off that you are a little bit more hyper vigilant about that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's just a part of it. And it's something that, in time I've learned to kind of embrace it, especially with what we're going to be discussing today with the changing of the seasons. When I go out shooting, I'm going to use the Upper Peninsula for an example because that's where I spend a lot of my time. In the winter, you have wind, snow, there's all kinds of different challenges that come with it. In the spring, you hope to get out there before the bugs come in, but maybe sometimes you're a little late and you got to deal with some, but then you also have to deal with rain showers and all these different things. And in the summer, maybe waterfalls dry up. In the fall, you know, it can be any kind of weather. We can get snow in the morning and rain in the afternoon, all kinds of things changing, but it all makes for great landscape photography and it influences your creative process as you go through the seasons. How does the changing of the seasons influence your creative approach throughout the year?
I think with the changing seasons, it brings a whole set of different challenges, but also it makes it so it makes it a little bit interesting because you can get, in the fall you got like fall colors and unpredictable weather. In the winter, you're looking at snow and ice and again unpredictable weather. For the spring, it's wildflowers or the spring thaw where you're getting waterfalls that are normally dry in the summer. Those are flowing. So I guess it's trying to like work out all the little nuances to what the season brings and try and make it work to what you're trying to achieve or what shot you're trying to go for. Um, for me, I do a lot of here in Ontario. We have a really great fall season where there's tons of sugar maples, like within an hour of my house. So it's like you get out for a little drive and you're just like in smack dab in like these red hues all over the place. But it also comes to a little bit of a problem where it's like that's all you want to focus on and you're not like seeing the wider picture or trying something a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a very good point where, you know, you can get distracted or maybe not distracted, but you
The
can get
blinders go on type of thing.
yeah, you can get very overly focused on one thing and it can completely change a trip. It can change an experience. And it happens a lot. Like you mentioned fall, it happens all the time for me too, where I'll see an area that's just 100% peak color and I will just fixate on it while completely ignoring something that could be 100 times better that's maybe at 70% color. It's a dangerous game. You kind of got to play that balancing game.
Right, right. Yeah, and it's you like you said, it's like you almost have blinders on for that specific thing because you're it's everywhere. It's almost like I call it sensory overload sometimes, especially when every fall I do a like a solo camping trip up to one of my favorite places is Algonquin Park, which is a provincial park in Ontario. It's one of the largest ones in the province, and there's a large section that is all sugar maples. So in the fall, it's just like bursting with color, and there's a ton of lookouts. There's tons of hiking trails. It's like the most quintessential like northern Ontario looking place in the world. Like it's immaculate. It feels like. But sometimes I feel like it's when you're there with all the colors at full peak, it is sensory overload. You get like it's almost too much. You're like, okay, I need to take a step back and see some green or something because this is just my rods and cones are going like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm happy you brought that up because it's the different seasons. Like you think winter, when I think of winter, when I'm going out, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to find some snowdrifts or I'm going to try to shoot some waterfalls that are flowing with some fresh snow. And you can hyper fixate on that. Or in the spring, You start looking around for wildflowers, flowing waterfalls, those lush green scenes. Um, Summer, I feel like for myself, at least, anyways, in summer, I'm just trying to break the color palette that is otherwise pure green. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you can find.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's you're I find sometimes when you're so focused on shooting for the season, it becomes where you lose track of all that the other stuff that's there. Um, Sometimes it's a matter of just shooting something that's a little bit different. I tend to, um, for me personally, I try to do like think outside of the box sometimes. It's one of those things that it might be a little bit difficult, but when you get or start thinking outside of the box, you start noticing those things that you might not have thought of when you were like, okay, I go into this specific place. I know I'm going to be, there's, for example, fall colors. I'm going to be shooting a ton of fall colors, but you know, thinking something a little bit different that maybe there's like night sky or something like that. Something that wouldn't be exactly what you went there to shoot. Could really change your mindset and actually change how you shoot the regular stuff, the stuff that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Keeping that variety of subjects and scenes in your mind and just being open. Like, that's something that I've always emphasized to other photographers and just reminded myself even too. Like, don't hyperfixate on anything. Just go there for the experience, take it all in, and as you're enjoying the experience, those subtle little moments that make that place so special will reveal themselves to you.
Yep, absolutely. I think sometimes, especially when you've been doing it for a while, you have this this almost like, okay, I have to go here and get a shot. Whereas, and you're almost forcing yourself to take a picture just for the sake of taking a picture, where it's not waiting to let it come to you. It it feels a little forced. And me personally, those type of shots, they're never my favorites. It's always those ones that just they appear out of nowhere and without even thinking about it. Just like the angels start singing, and it's just like, wow, this is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Early on when I first started actually doing destination trips that, Great Lakes destinations, I would go out and I'd put a number in my head and be like, okay, well, I need to get 2, 3, 4, whatever shots today. Like, that's my number. I need to come back with that. And I realized in time, I'm just putting pressure on myself. Just it's unnecessary pressure that really at the end of the day, you're just stifling your creativity. And like, you can go someplace for a week. If you only come back with 2, 3 shots that you really like, that's perfectly fine. No
Absolutely.
shame in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's always good to be prepared and to know what to expect, especially at a location. Like, uh, know what the weather is going to be like, or know what some of the major landmarks are, or even as much as getting those iconic shots, like knowing what to expect. But when you just leave those are the ones that you're going to capture and nothing else. It kind of feels a little like you're not doing everything that you could be doing. Like being able to get out and explore is always my favorite part about photography, is when you're going out and you don't have like a clear expectation. You're just exploring, and it just comes to you.
Exactly. It's that flow state where you just you don't have a destination, but you know when you arrived. And when you're there, it's like all the pieces fall into place. It's natural. And I like that you brought up that planning piece because, a part of it does kind of fall into that where, you have to plan differently for different seasons and you have to mentally prepare yourself for different seasons as well. Do you find that you have to plan your work differently based on seasonal patterns or depending on, maybe weather or potential subjects?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for me, like a lot of my stuff, or the locations that I visit, they tend to be, closer to home. With a family and a job. Um, I try to keep like a 2 hour drive is kind of like a normal thing. Anything more than that, it needs to be planned, obviously. But you know, having to like figure out, okay, where um where's the sun coming up, or um what direction is the best for this type of view, especially if I know, like, for example, for me, the closest place that I go to a lot is Lake Ontario and the shoreline. I do a lot of, like, I guess, seascape or lakescape um photos. So waves or crashing over rocks type of thing. uh Not so much super long exposure stuff, but more so stuff that, I still capturing detail in the waves, but knowing where, for example, the sun is going to set, or uh, knowing that, hey, there's going to be big puffy clouds out there uh, on one of these days, it makes it a lot easier for you to go out there and uh, not expect anything, but be prepared for something.
Yeah, exactly. That's very well put, of recognizing that the sun is going to change positions throughout the seasons. So is the moon. Where it's going to rise, where it's going to set, both sun, the moon, the Milky Way for those that do astrophotography, and understanding, hey, maybe this scene isn't going to work right now in spring, but I fast forward to September, October. Well, the sun's going to rise wherever I need it to at that time, and it's going to make the scene work. And then you can make those mental notes and come back. And that's something that I think goes really well with being a landscape photographer throughout the seasons, is when you see something, and going back to the point we made earlier, when you see something, don't try to force it in the wrong season. I've learned over the years that 9 times out of 10, if you just wait for the right season and the right time, it's going to be so much better and you're going to be so much more proud of it. And then you come home, even if it is just one shot, hey, you got it.
Absolutely. I find a lot more nowadays is, I'll call them like scouting missions, where um, I'll go to a specific location and it just might not be the perfect amount of something, like sky is not there where it really needs it, or maybe my mindset, my head is not there at that time. Maybe the light is just coming from the wrong direction, but looking around and saying, okay, there's a shot here. It's just not the right time, like you said, but I need to figure out when it is going to be the right time and what conditions will make that work. And, pop it down on like a note or something and come back another time, especially stuff that's, for me, I find stuff that's close to home, that it's my location that I go to when I just need to get out of the house and shoot something, or just go out with my camera, just get some time away from the house. Uh, getting to those spots and just seeing what I can find. And there'll be times where, especially along the lake shore, the shoreline changes so drastically from like week to week, even. Like, for example, I'll be walking down the shoreline and this beautiful like tree stump just showed up out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, this is perfect. This is perfect subject, but it's missing something. It's missing either the light, it's missing a sky, uh, it's missing something. So I'll remember that and come back and hopefully capture that with all the elements that it needs.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you with that, especially with light, because I've noticed that there really is a difference in the quality of light across the seasons. And, you know, I've been in the same predicament where I'll go somewhere, I'll see something, and I'm like, that is a perfect subject, but the light is wrong. Or this is a beautiful scene, but the light is wrong. There was a shot just last year that I found, beautiful shot on the shoreline of the Porcupine Mountains. And I was sitting there, I was all set up, waiting for sunset. Sunsets and the light's all wrong. The sun was setting in the wrong location. And I was like, okay, well, that's just the way it goes. And came back when the light was supposed to be right later in the year. And unfortunately, there was wildfire smoke. So dashed again. But I know it's there. And, that's the beautiful part about landscape photography is, you know, just because it doesn't work out now doesn't mean it never will. Just like you said, write it down, make a mental note, drop a pin on Google, whatever you got to do, come back to it.
Yeah, that's a perfect reason to revisit locations too, because like you said, you could be like, how often do you get to a location and it's just perfect? Like it's so rare that everything just works out perfectly. Like it happens. I know, like we all have shots that are just like you just walked up to a scene and it's just like it's just presented out for you. Like you didn't have to really think about it; it's just there. But 9 times out of 10, it's not perfect, and you're like, oh, I wish there was some clouds in the sky, or I wish the light was a little bit better. And it's just those little things that, for me, I find keep me going out to these same locations over and over again. And just also while you're there, exploring you know, different compositions or different vantage points or different stories that you're trying to say with your shot. So definitely, revisiting those locations is huge.
That's something that I think is something learned over time because when I first got into started taking landscape photography very seriously, I would I would get somewhere and I would say, well, this is a shot that I know can work. So I'm just going to try to make it work. And then you come back home, you look at it on the computer and it just doesn't have that punch that you're looking for. And what I've noticed is when all the conditions line up, the light, your composition, your conditions overall, when it all lines up and it's truly a remarkable shot, there's very little post production that you have to do to it at all. Like you don't have to mess around in Photoshop. You don't have to do anything. It's just bring it in, clean it up a little bit, boom, done.
Yeah, it was meant to be that way because you as little post processing as needed, and it's just like, here you go. It's almost like on a silver platter. Here you go. This is your shot.
Yep. And it's the best feeling in the field because then, you're going back to camp, you're driving back home, whatever the case might be, and you just in the back of your mind, hey, I got the shot. That is 100% a winner. And it feels great. And that's actually one of the things that I absolutely love about spring is the variation in conditions and the light. Man, it can really set you up for some really cool scenes if you're patient and wait them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for example, right now, the sun is going a little crazy with the coronal ejections happening. So, like even for example, like the Northern Lights, if you're lucky enough to get, because it wasn't it roughly about this time last year where the really big one happened,
Yeah, it was May 10th,
May
May
10th. So
10th
not
into May
yeah
11th.
yeah.
So
So this is like almost a year from the big one. So uh, just being wary of that, what's happening type of thing, and you know having those locations that hey, if this happens, this would be a great spot. So keeping those in the back of your mind, that's like, if 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 this happens again, I know exactly where I'm going to go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's having that experience and that time spent in places across all seasons. And I think that that is probably one of the most underrated pieces of advice that people, I mean, I don't know, I don't hear it talked about as much, but going to a location under all seasons and seeing it in all conditions, winter, spring, summer, fall, and knowing, hey, this shot will work at this point, this shot will work at that point. This could look good under conditions in multiple seasons, whatever. The more familiar you become with a location, the better off you're going to be when the conditions are changing. When maybe there's a storm blowing in off the lake, you know, hey, well, maybe this scene that I had initially set up for sunset isn't going to work, but this really cool rock formation is going to work when that light catches it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. There's for, so with spring here, and wildflowers are popping up. I over the past couple of years, I've been uh, scouting out these locations where a lot of trilliums are popping up. And uh, if you don't know what a trillium is, it's a ground flower that is white and it's got three petals on it, and they're beautiful because they usually carpet the ground. And so, uh, you know, knowing where they they come up and knowing areas that are covered with them, if you can figure out, okay, when is the best light that's going to shine on these things to give it that to give that scene almost that like ethereal looking like fairy tale feel. um and if you scouted this like way back for like I've been following this or revisiting this one spot year after year. um so you know, okay, it's season's coming. I'm going to go check it out. No, they're not ready. I'll have to come back. So, like planning all those little nuances of like trying to find the perfect time to catch them.
Yeah, there's a park that's not far from me. It's called Starved Rock State Park. And they have some trilliums there, but they have a lot of bluebells. And it is one of the things I look forward to every single spring is getting there and hiking the trails at full bloom because the little, I guess you'd call it meadow of flowers, it faces the sunrise side of the park. So as the sun comes up, you have all this light filtering through these thin trees on a nice misty foggy morning. You can get beams of light, and it's beautiful. And it's one of those things, like you said, when you mentioned you'd been scouting the location with the trilliums for years, this immediately popped into my mind. I was like, hey, I've been scouting this spot for years too, just with bluebells. And it's like you said, it's part of that being familiar and knowing the changes across the seasons for these different places and using that to your advantage.
Yeah, and being prepared. Like for example, what you said with like the mist. So you could go a whole season, like a whole spring season, without any mist like showing up, just because the conditions are too dry. But like you'll have another season where you're having like these beautiful misty mornings. So being prepared, like knowing, hey, like this is perfect conditions to go check out this spot. um, it makes it so much easier, and then you can go there, grab the shot you want. But being prepared that, you know, I know that, you know, this spot is covered in these things. This will be a perfect shot in these conditions.
It makes all the difference. I mean, when I think of springtime, here in Illinois, I'm looking for the trilliums, the bluebells. I mean, we don't have a lot of incredible geology or geography here, but the further north you go, the closer you get to Lake Superior, it becomes dramatically more pronounced. And, when I think Upper Peninsula, I'm thinking ferns. I'm thinking, what kind of spring vegetation can I incorporate into an image that really encapsulates that season, that it just embodies that feeling of spring and being familiar and just understanding where to go. That's huge. And I think another thing that we touched on with like mist is the conditions, like being fully prepared for spring weather. I mean, all of us here on the Great Lakes, we know it can be 70 degrees and sunny at 10 in the morning. And by 4 in the afternoon, there's 50-mile-an-hour winds. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on my drive home, it was like there was flurries. So it's like it's April. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's been the same thing here in Illinois. Just a couple weeks ago, it was 70 degrees on a Friday. It snowed on Sunday. And then it was back to like 55, 60 degrees on Monday. I was like, what is even happening at this point?
Yeah, we're having a wild one. But, that's what makes it so interesting to live in a spot where you have all four seasons because, you're, 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 there's so much variety that you can shoot. Like not even necessarily going to those local spots, but like going on a pre-planned trip, a couple hours away. There's so much different variety. You can go in the winter, and there's a couple spots, couple hours north of Toronto that they're they're just unbelievably gorgeous in the wintertime. But it's tough trekking to get up there. Like it's not an easy trek. So, you know, having that variety that you can go there in the summertime and it's a lot easier, but it just doesn't have the same the same dynamics that it would in the wintertime.
As far as like those crazy wild weather changes go, how do you adapt creatively to that early unpredictability with like the spring bloom, weather changes, all the different things that can occur on the Great Lakes? How are you kind of planning and preparing for that?
I think a lot of it comes down to just experience and like going through those same conditions year after year, knowing where, like say for example, a specific location, it's probably going to be better suited for a specific condition. There's spots where like I would visit that I wouldn't tend to visit in the spring or summer because there's nothing that will actually or there's nothing that captures me to want to take a shot then. But in the fall, it's just like unbelievable there because the colors are there and you're just like overload of fall color. So it seems to always go back to the scouting and knowing where to go for specific conditions.
Yeah, that's very well said. And that's something that, I think we've all experienced as photographers. Like last year, I spent basically the entire year scouting and exploring the Porcupine Mountains in the Upper Peninsula. I started in winter, came back in spring, came back in summer, and returned in fall for the final fall colors trip after having spent all this time scouting all these different areas. And to your point, like when I came back in, I think it was mid July, it was beautiful. It was great. But from like a photography perspective, I was struggling so much getting away from just pure greens, getting away from just a sea of vivid green. And it really challenged my photography because when I had been there in spring, there was greens and yellows and wildflowers and there was variety. You could split up the scene. And then obviously in fall, it's the same thing. You've got different colors, you've got different aspects that you can build into it. But I learned very quickly in that experience, hey, this is all just vivid green. I've got to pivot. And maybe some of these places that I think are really, really great, well, they're going to be really, really great at a later date and time because right now they're just pure green.
Right. And it touches back on the fact that, sometimes going out to scout a location and not taking a picture is is still it's still worthwhile. Like you're setting up that list of different places that, like you said, this might not work right now, but you know, in the fall, in the winter, like this would be perfect. And having that list of locations that it's pinned on the Google Maps or whatever, however you want to do it. It's a great idea to have. And I don't think a lot of newer photographers really incorporate that into their like their journey, because it tends, like, I remember when I was starting out, I would go to a location and just shoot, which is great because you're getting that experience of shooting, but almost forcing a shot just for the sake of taking a shot, not necessarily going there to explore, to learn, to see what's available and what could be in a different season. And it's a huge thing to do, and I think a lot more people should have that list of places.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it changes everything from your planning to your approach. And like you said previously, gives you a reason to come back. And that's 90% of it, just having that reason to come back, other than, hey, this place is beautiful, I want to go see it again. Going there and knowing, hey, I have a purpose. I know this scene is out there and I want to go and attempt it one more time, two more times. Maybe it's your fifth time attempting it. Doesn't matter. The fact is that you're out there and you're trying, you're practicing, you're learning. And that's something I've said before on the show too, is there's no such thing as a failed trip. If you go out there and you tried and you walked away having learned something new versus getting a new photo, it's still a win.
Absolutely. There's a spot that uh, roughly an hour from the city, but it's home to, like, I think it's got the record for the most waterfalls in the world in one town or one city. There's like 150 of them. Now, mind you, a lot of them, they dry up in the summertime, so there there's nothing there. But going to a location that is going to flow really well in the springtime, but going there in the dead of summer, it could work, it might not, but just getting out there to see, like, just getting out there to explore and to try your luck is, I find, for me personally, not only just getting out, which is huge in itself, but um, learning, okay, I can take that one off the list for the summer and come back in the fall or the spring.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all have to get accustomed to doing, is just learning how to leave a shot behind and wait for the right season, and just allowing it to be there in the back of your mind and not drive you crazy, because that's the way I've gotten with a couple scenes in the past. I'm like, I know it's there and I'm going to keep trying until I get it, but I'm going to the key thing is I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to do this.
Right. Make
And
it happen.
right, you've got to have that tenacity to just say, okay, well, I'm either going to get it this trip, or I'm going to come back. I'm going to get it on another trip. But
Right away when you get to a location that it's not going to work. Like, right off the bat, you go, okay, I can scratch this one off the list, because it's just, no matter what season, it's not going to work. And, move on from there.
that's something that I actually struggled with in my early years of photography, is you spend all this time, this energy getting to a location, you see it, and you just know immediately. You get that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, man, yeah, this is a bust. This isn't going to work. But then you still set up and you're like, well, I came all this way. I'm going to try anyways. And what I've actually done to break myself of that habit over the years is I'll take out my cell phone and I'll set up different compositions on my cell phone, and I'll snap them, put them in a folder, and then it's kind of like a subconscious way of, hey, I took the shot, I made a mental note of it, I stored it somewhere. I'm okay coming away without the actual scene, but it kind of fills that void of producing something and becomes, like you said, that scouting piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because there's been times for like me personally, I've gone to like an iconic location, like one of those places that you've seen photograph a ton of times, but it's just there's something about it that's just not like maybe it's the conditions. There's just not you're not feeling it at that point because it's not perfect. Doesn't mean it's not like a great spot. It's just not perfect at that time. And going there and knowing, okay, well, conditions aren't right. I got to go back. It is an iconic spot for a reason.
Yep, exactly. And that's one of those things is you got to go back and, while you're there, while you're scouting, while you're exploring, one of the things that I've always tried to do, regardless of if I get an image or not, is I look for subtle signs of change. So maybe I go to the Porcupine Mountains mid May and I see that there's some flowers blooming over in this area and there's some ferns blooming over in that area. Like you said, I'm putting that in my back pocket and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to come back here again mid June and looking for those little subtle indicators of, hey, this could be something, this could have potential in time. When you're out there, what kind of little subtle signs do you typically look for in between seasons that would indicate to you, hey, this might be a place of value at a later date?
A lot of the times it tends to be the biggest one for me, I think, is light direction. Um, I think as landscape photographers, we're also, you know, amateur meteorologists. So we learn about like, what the conditions are going to be like and how to predict them. But as photographers, we're so focused on light and knowing how the light is going to react, knowing where the light's going to be is a huge. It's just one of those things that you have in the back of your pocket that you're just like, okay, this is. I know exactly where it's coming. Now let me find the scene or the shot. And so if I know, for example, like scouted a location that I know is like you said with the bluebells, it's covered in bluebells, and I know that the light is going to come this way. Um, like illuminate them perfectly. Now I'm just waiting for the right light and go there. You know, I'll check my forecast. This day is perfect and try and make it work. Yeah. So just I guess having those tools and that knowledge that you're like, okay, I can make this work at this location with this particular type of weather with these conditions, and it may work, it may not, but you have everything set, and it's kind of you're all you're doing is you're ready to go take the shot and see what happens.
That's huge, is just preparedness, understanding the weather, knowing what conditions you can expect or can't expect, and just being careful with expectations overall is really the big thing. And I like that you had actually brought up light in that, because yes, that's really what we're doing as photographers. We are all in pursuit of light. And that's something that I think in my experience anyways is really special in spring. I've always been very partial to spring light. Have you experienced the same?
No, absolutely. It feels like it's a lot softer. Like it just there's something about it. Um, it just feels different than any other time of the year. And I don't know what it is about it. It's maybe it's just closer to the horizon when uh, maybe it's the atmosphere, but there is something about it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always noticed it, and I've mentioned it a couple times to a couple photographers where I'm convinced that sunrise light in spring, there's something very special about it. It's soft, it's just, it's perfect. And when all the elements come together, it can really, really take just an ordinary scene and transform it into an extraordinary scene. And especially with the variations in spring weather, where, like we talked about, it's maybe it rained overnight and then it cools off right before sunrise, and that sudden shift in temperature. Now you've got that nice surface level fog. You can be out there looking for sun rays. You can be out there looking for silhouettes in the fog. You can do so much. And I think that's one of the things that makes me love spring so much. You can literally experience so many different conditions in such a short period of time that offers so many different photographic opportunities. It's amazing.
Yeah, even within the hours, like you can go for sunrise. And a couple of years ago, I went down to the lake, and it had gotten really cold that evening, but overnight it warmed up, where there was just this mist and fog right over the lake. And by the time the sun had really risen up, it had, you know, 20 degrees, it felt like it's changed. And it's so, the variation in temperature and conditions and weather was just unbelievable. Just within, from that sunrise morning to, a couple hours after sunrise, was like night and day, felt like.
Yeah. And that's, I had a very similar experience last spring myself, where I had hiked into an interior forest waterfall. It was raining, it was overcast, it was cloudy. And I was like, "Oh, this is perfect waterfall weather. I'm going to go shoot some waterfalls and just kind of make the most of the day. Got this nice diffused light. Good to go." Spent the late morning, early afternoon shooting this waterfall. Hiked back out of the forest, and as I was sitting there in the parking lot, just at the trailhead, just kind of catching my breath, I looked up and I saw little bits of blue sky through the clouds. And I was like, wait, this storm is breaking up and it's maybe an hour, hour and a half to sunset. This is going to make some great opportunity at sunset. I got to get to the shoreline. I got to get somewhere where I can get more of this light. And sure enough, it all worked out. There was broken clouds. There was a little bit of mist in the air. There was a passing storm, just vibrant color. I mean, it was perfect. And it's taking advantage of those conditions. And like you said, being an amateur meteorologist, like, you don't have to have a degree. You just need to basically look up at the sky and say, well, I see it's doing this. Where do I go for the best, opportunity at a shot under these conditions?
There was one time last year, I hiked out to a waterfall. It's a lesser known waterfall in Ontario, so it's not well traveled. So it was a little bit of a difficult hike. But when I got there, it was overcast. It was great for waterfalls because I didn't have to worry about highlights all over the place, and deep shadows. But all of a sudden, I could see above me. It was like there was an opening uh, popping through, and with the mist from the waterfall, I was like, you know what? Give it about 20 minutes, and this could look really good with some light just right on it. And I just kind of sat there, wasn't expecting to just sit there for that long, but just kind of sat there, waited for the light to come through, and then it happened to just work out perfectly, where the light hit the mist and it just made the whole scene completely different than 20 minutes before. Like, it just changed it so drastically just by just having that light just shine through. And yeah, it was just one of those things where I'm glad I waited, because I would never have had that shot.
Yeah. And that's something that, again, it's learned over time. As you get out there, you experience more, you do more. Because I remember when I first got into photography, I was very much so a fair weather photographer. If it wasn't 70, 75 and sunny, I was like, I ain't even bothering getting my gear and going out. And then I'll never forget it. I was actually at the Porcupine Mountains and I was standing out at the overlook, and there was a storm clearing. It was basically all overcast for the most part. Wasn't anything extraordinary happening. But as I stood there, about 15 minutes went by and dappled light started breaking through the storm clouds. And there were just these beautiful beams of light just bursting through the clouds down into the valleys. And I was just sitting there, just like, wow, look at how beautiful this is. And if I would have said, "Oh, well, I'm going back to camp, forget it. There's nothing here," I would have totally missed the shot. And just taking advantage of those different conditions, especially with different seasons, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And also going back to the just knowing what to expect in the different seasons is huge so that you kind of have like a game plan for each season. Like okay, this might not be the best shot for this season, but I can come back here spring, fall, summer, winter, whatever, and have a better chance at getting the shot that I want.
Yeah, there's a few scenes in my area that there's these old growth white pines that they're just beautiful, beautiful giant pine trees. And I've gone there, I've shot them in the spring, I've shot them in the summer, I've shot them in the fall. And I've always told myself, hey, we get one big, really good winter storm, just enough to cover the underbrush because, the underbrush isn't very tall in those areas. The pine trees are so thick that it doesn't get enough light at the forest floor to really build much up. And I keep telling myself, hey, one of these years I'm going to go there, I'm going to get that shot. But unfortunately, Illinois hasn't seen much snow the last couple years. So I'm still waiting, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode. It's there, it's in your back pocket. Wait for those conditions. And, to your point, the knowing the changes that an area will undergo season to season and what opportunities are available under each different season, that really is landscape photography in a nutshell, with light, of course.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. You said it.
I feel it really could be an entire episode topic all on its own of,
For sure. For sure.
the hurdles that each season presents, you know, the challenges that come with it, but the rewards are incredible. What are some of the trickier aspects of spring that you've learned to work through over the years?
I think just the variation in weather and weather conditions, because, you know, it, you could be like 5 days of straight rain. And, you know, if you put like some money into going out somewhere to travel, you kind of have to pivot to work with what you've got, especially if you're going out of your way to get to a certain location. Not so much if it's local, but you know, just trying to find something that works with the weather. Like for example, if it's a couple days of straight overcast skies, maybe look at something like details that you know like tighter, intimate scenes or stuff that doesn't include a sky. So working with what you've got and the weather's, it may be horrible, but you kind of pivot and try something a little different, try something that's outside of the box, something that maybe you don't normally shoot. Like say, for example, shooting macro, like getting details. So, pivoting and trying something different could be one of those things that you can work with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I think is huge to all photographers is having, I call them pivot points, where maybe you get to a location and you see, hey, there's no chance this is going to work. And okay, well, option A, not happening. You have B, C, D, E, F, G, everything like we talked about previously in your back pocket. It's a really rainy day. Sunrise looks like it's going to be a bust. Well, hey, I can go shoot these waterfalls up the street. I'm still going to still going to get a little bit of time in behind the camera. Or maybe it's a bluebird sky day. You go to shoot sunrise, there's not a cloud in the sky. Like you said, you pivot to those details. Well, maybe there's no detail in the sky, but maybe there's a cool rock formation on the ground. Maybe there's some neat color in the trees in spring or some flowers. There could be all kinds of things, but like you said, it's those expectations kind of you've got to kind of pull those back and just like we talked about at the beginning, man, just take those blinders off and just look around and it's going to make a world of difference.
Yeah. And it like, spring is you can never tell what you're going to get weather wise. Especially in the Great Lakes region. It's just like you said, it could go from, snowing to like 20 degrees warmer in a matter of a couple hours. So it, being able to have that in your back pocket and know, hey, if this is not going to work, I could try this. And sometimes you'd be surprised at what you can capture and what you might like coming out of that.
Yeah, very well said. And one of the things that comes with that I think some people might not consider is being prepared for those changes in the seasons. Obviously, in winter, you want to be bringing warm clothes and extra layers. In summer, maybe you're bringing extra bug spray. In fall and spring, you kind of have to prepare a little differently. Like, I keep an extra raincoat in my bag. I keep an extra fleece in my bag just in case it cools off. I actually bring rain gear for my camera for the same thing, or especially if you're going to be shooting near the lake on the coastline. And we all know Lake Superior. When she's awake, she is awake. And, there's a very good chance you're going to get splashed. I mean, really with any of the Great Lakes, but when it comes to gear preparation for spring shooting, what are you thinking as you're packing your bag and getting ready for a trip?
One thing I would add to that list, rubber boots are like a huge one for me, especially, traveling along the lakeshore. And then there's quite a few trails if you're going to a waterfall or something like that. They could get a little muddy this time of year. So that's huge. One thing that I've actually invested in a couple years ago that was huge for me when shooting waterfalls is I picked up a pair of waders. They're not super expensive. They were relatively cheap, but I was able to get into spots that I could not have done with like a pair of knee-high boots and get some compositions that would never have been be able to get without those waders on. And for like $150, you can get a decent pair.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually bought a pair of waders back in, I want to say it was 2017 for the same reason. I was in Wisconsin. I found some really cool waterfalls and I thought the same thing. I was like, the coolest perspective is literally in the middle of the waterfall. So I got to find a way to get out there. And that's what I did. I drove to Green Bay. There was I believe it's a Cabela's or a Bass Pro Shops or something there. And I bought a pair of waders and I keep them in my car now just in case because they really are a game changer. And just last year actually I bought a pair of NRS boundary socks and they're knee-high socks that are like neoprene and waterproof so you can get a little further out into the water. But I also bought a pair of neoprene pants that you can throw on over those and it does the same thing, up to your waist at least. It's not chest waders, but same thing. It having those little tools can give you a totally different perspective on something that maybe it's been shot 100 times the same way, but it's only been shot a couple times from somebody that's actually willing to go out, take their gear out in the middle of this river and give it a go.
Right. I have a shot that I took a couple years ago of a really, it's a well-known waterfall here in Ontario. you see it captured so many times. But with the waders, I was able to get to the opposite side of the waterfall and take it from a different angle that I've had people message me. Is like, what waterfall is that? It doesn't look anything like the one you like, the one I think it is. And it's just because you're able to get to those, compositions or those angles that, 90% of people can't get to because of the tool that you have.
Exactly. I had a shot just like that last year at Shining Cloud Falls in the Porcupine Mountains. I came back, I posted it, and I had somebody message me. They said, "How did you get over there?" And I was like, "Well, I put on my neoprene pants and I put my camera over my head, attached the tripod, and I just walked." And there was a point where the water was, up almost to my chin. And I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I should have done this, but I'm committed now. So I'm going." But it paid off. It's how you get those unique angles, those cool perspectives. And you can take, like you said, a place that everyone recognizes. You can take it and you can get it from a totally different angle. Look for that less obvious composition, and it changes everything and introduces a whole new dynamic to something that may be fairly common otherwise.
It's just being able to add a tool like that just to give you the opportunity to capture something a little different, and putting that in your I guess your toolbox or your camera bag, so to speak. But yeah, it just makes it so that you have the opportunity to capture something that somebody else might not have, just because you have that little tool. Yeah, it's a great thing to have.
It really is. Now, that actually makes me think I actually have totes in my storage closet for different seasons, and I'll swap them in and out of my car depending on what season it is. So, like winter, I've got hats, gloves, extra pair of boots, whatever. Spring, I've got extra pair of those NRS socks. I've got bug spray, all kinds of little things. Do you do the same kind of
I
stuff?
do the exact same thing. So I just switched out my fall early summer one last week, just because I had the winter stuff in the car. And yeah, it's just having it where it's there and you're not in the field and go, oh man, I wish I had this or I wish I had that. Especially where we are, bug spray is a huge one. That's it's and a bug jacket, because it could get pretty bad, especially in the springtime. Depending, like further north you go, the those deer flies and those black flies, they're no joke.
Yes. There was a moment that I I was just shocked at how many were on me last spring. I walked out to the shoreline. It was probably 75 degrees. I looked down at my pants and I had to have had 100 of them on my pant legs. And I was just like, what? I got to get out of here. As soon as these things figure out that they can bite me, it's game over.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I don't do a ton of astrophotography. I'd like to get more into it, but I went to this dark sky preserve that's a couple hours north of the city, and it was early spring. Wasn't prepared for the bugs and the location, because we camped out like literally right in front of um, I guess a marshy area, and 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's just you're just getting eaten alive, and it was beautiful for the photography, but it was just a nightmare for the bugs, and it made it a little difficult. But yeah, just being prepared and having those things in your car, in your bag, it's just a lifesaver sometimes.
It really is. And yeah, the bugs are no joke. And something that I've actually learned to do over the years is I'll actually take my hiking pants and my long sleeve sun shirts and all that, and I'll actually treat them with permethrin before I go out. And I mean, it helps a little bit with mosquitoes, but it's mostly for ticks. They'll stay off the clothes because they're permethrin treated. And I mean, of course, for all the listeners out there, follow the directions on the bottle. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory stuff, but it can be dangerous. But I've noticed over the years that using that and just some normal bug spray, like you're pretty good.
Yeah. So where we are here, ticks have become a real problem, especially with Lyme disease. And I have a friend, a fellow photographer, who was bit like late in the fall, actually last year, and it was actually bit with a tick that did have Lyme disease, and luckily he caught it in time where he didn't have any issues. But it's one of those things. It's becoming really scary. There's a couple spots that I go to that are there's signs up now that are just they're swarming with them, and it's come to the point where sometimes you got to think twice at certain times of the year that maybe that's not the great place to go visit because they're getting really bad.
Yeah, they are. And I've told people multiple times in the past, like when I go out into the wilderness, people ask me all the time, are you afraid of bears? Are you afraid of moose, wolves, mountain lions? Nope, not in the slightest. Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to see you, they're going to run, you're going to be fine. Unless the moose is, in season or the bear is startled, 9 times out of 10, they are going to leave you alone. It's the ticks that worry me because of the diseases they carry. There's the Lone Star tick, and I'm not 100% sure what the condition is that it causes, what the name of it is, but basically it makes you lactose intolerant. You can't eat red meat, makes you allergic to these things. Something with the protein in its bite, and that can last like 4 or 5 years, sometimes longer. It's just insane. And then you have Lyme disease, which is just equally dangerous if not treated and caught. It's scary stuff.
Yeah, and they're like you don't feel the bite either. I was bit a couple years ago, and luckily I caught it in time, and there was no Lyme disease in that particular tick. But you know, like you said, it's no joke. It's something you definitely don't want to catch.
Yeah. And it's something that for all of our listeners out there getting ready for spring hikes and gearing up to get out there. I mean, I know myself, I am 100% ready to go, chomping at the bit, ready to get out there. I'm done with winter. I have got
Same here.
cabin fever. I'm like, I just want to go out there and shoot the spring bloom. But things to keep in mind for all of the photographers, all of those that just love adventure, be mindful of the ticks, wear your bug spray, bring, like we talked about, bring a tote with extra stuff in it in the back of your car just in case, because the last thing you want is to get somewhere and then get swarmed by black flies, mosquitoes, and all those other insects that are out there and have no way to defend yourself because you're not going to enjoy your photography when you're swatting mosquitoes and getting bit by flies.
Absolutely. And it's just being prepared is such a good thing, especially when you're dealing with something that could be potentially, um, maybe not life threatening, but it could be something that you have to deal with, and it's not that's definitely not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree entirely. So we've covered a lot of different parts of seasonal photography, um, gone over the challenges and the rewards of spring, what to look for. What top 3 things would you recommend photographers could do right now to make the most of their spring shooting as we all get ready to get out the door and start enjoying the spring landscape?
So I'd say get your gear ready. I tend to miss this step sometimes too. Like you just get maybe perfect time to clean those lenses or clean the sensor, get stuff off your SD cards, but like just get your gear ready for shooting. Especially like here in Ontario this time of year, uh, I call it the dead season because everything is just brown and gray, and it doesn't lend itself to to photography, unfortunately. So why not this perfect opportunity to just get your gear kind of sorted out for, the spring, like when it is good photography weather or conditions. Another thing is, you know, keep an eye on that weather. I have, I think I have countless weather apps, and sometimes I don't even realize like I got some that I've downloaded and I've never used them. It's just sitting there. But like, keep an eye on the weather, and if you have like a long stretch of like overcast weather coming up, maybe try some waterfalls, which might work. Or uh, you know, right now I think the Milky Way is starting to show up a little bit. You know, look for those clear nights. Um, yeah, the sunrises are unbelievable this time of year, and also helps that they're not at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
because that's always tough.
Yes.
It makes it a little easier to get out of bed to capture those, but just be prepared for like whatever weather can come, because like we said before, it's all over the place this time of year. Um, uh, One thing I could recommend that I think I need to do more of too is see if you can find some people to go out and shoot with. Like we touched on this earlier, where you know, getting out to shoot with a group to bounce off ideas, and you know, get a group of people that you can, you know, go to places that maybe are a little bit more difficult to get to. Um, it also helps that there's probably somebody that you're inspired by, that might help, you know, uh, get your mindset into shooting a specific thing, or just get out there. I found this time of year, especially here in Ontario, where it's the dead season, it's a little bit more difficult to, you know, meet up with with people that are photographers or like-minded photographers. But yeah, one thing that I'm actually would love to do, and I don't see enough of it being done, is finding a group of people that I can share, uh, like my photos for critiques. Um, that necessarily isn't about, spring weather and spring shooting, but like I find a lot of, sharing something, for example, on Instagram, you're going to get those like generic, oh, great shot, this and this and that. But sometimes it's nice to just get some feedback that is constructive. And I feel like there's not enough of that out there these days. With When I was talking back with the photo club, there was we had some great critiquing sessions that, you pop up a picture and get some feedback from, you know some seasoned photographers. And I always found I learned something new, or I saw an image in a different light just hearing it from somebody else. And I find it's tough to get that feedback from people, and it's huge. I find if you can find that, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. That's a very good point, is getting feedback on your work is huge. I mean, it's how we all grow, it's how we all develop. And I've had it many times where I've shown somebody an image of mine that I thought was just fantastic and said, "Hey, what's your honest opinion on this?" And I mean, you got to be prepared for whatever is going to come next, but that helps so much in, your composition, your choice of shutter speed, maybe your depth of field, maybe the color, maybe the post processing changes everything. And then, to your earlier point too, of just getting your gear prepared, it all really kind of blends together. Of, you get your gear prepared, you watch the weather and see what's going on, prepare yourself for what you can shoot, and then get that feedback on what you're going out there and doing. And as that all comes together, you're going to set yourself up for a great year going forward, because you're building, you're experimenting, you're trying, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, like, so having that new perspective, it could, change the way you see it or your mindset the next time you're out in the field. It just make you look at something a little different. And it could be a huge, huge help.
That's very good advice because that's how we all grow. New perspectives and feedback and just being prepared and getting out there. It's literally a cycle of come up with an idea, go try it, bring it back, get feedback, just keep doing it. And in time, not only is your work going to improve, but you're eventually going to reach a point where you can actually help others too. And that's one of the most rewarding aspects I feel in photography is just being able to help other people is huge.
Yeah. Sharing a little bit of your knowledge of your experiences, like it's one of the most rewarding things you can have in this field. It's really nice to have somebody come up to you and say, thank you. I was really struggling with this and you made it a lot easier.
Exactly. This whole episode, I feel like we've covered that, and I hope that we've helped and inspired some of the listeners out there to get out and try some new things. Be prepared. Just get out there and enjoy spring and the changing of the seasons across the board. But I definitely want to say thank you again for jumping on an episode and having this discussion with us. It's been great.
Thanks, Nicholas. I appreciate the opportunity to chat. This was a lot of fun.
How can people find your work and check out some of your images?
So best spot is probably my website. So it's Chris Noronha, Noronha photo.com. Also on Instagram, Chris Noronha photo. There tends to be so many of these little apps popping up. I'm losing track of which ones I'm on, but it's usually Chris Noronha photo on all the social media stuff. So, but website's probably the best one.
I will definitely include links to all of Chris's work and his social media in the show notes below so that you guys can go give him a follow and check out his work. And looking forward to seeing what you come back with as well from shooting this spring.
Thanks, Nick. Same here. I'm looking forward to see what you got too.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Another big thank you to Chris for joining us. Such a great discussion with an equally great individual and photographer. Links to all of his work are included in the show notes below. Make sure you head over there and check out his work and follow along with his journey. In the next episode, we are taking to the skies with Cameron Wilcox, known as Bucky Calloway on Instagram, as we discuss aerial photography using drones and how to make the most out of your adventures in aerial photography. It's going to be an exciting discussion that you certainly do not want to miss. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so that you can be notified when the episode becomes available. As always, your support is greatly appreciated. I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody.